She wasn't expected to watch her disarm the SEAL instructor at 3 a.m. Shockingly real. It was supposed to be a normal training night at the SEAL compound, but everything changed when the clock struck 3. The moon shone bright through the trees, casting eerie shadows that danced across the yard. The tension was palpable. Each SEAL's heart thudded in their chest while they circled around the training mat, eyes locked on the unlikely challenger. A girl. That's right. Just a girl. She wasn't too big or intimidating, but her grit was undeniable. Behind her calm demeanor lurked the spirit of a lion. Could she really take on a trained instructor? The air crackled with electricity. You could taste the excitement mixed with fear, almost like it was a living thing. As she stepped into the ring, whispers floated around. "This is insane." One veteran breathed, eyes wide. "She doesn't stand a chance." But what they didn't know was she had secrets. Had she trained in the shadows with legends? Was she hiding skills that left even the toughest warrior wondering? Her movements were fluid, almost like she danced despite the gravity of the situation. They watched, amazed as she cracked her knuckles, readying herself, and then it began. The instructor lunged forward, all muscle and force. The man was a wall of strength, but she ducked, jumped, and twisted in ways that made everyone gasp. It was unnatural, mesmerizing. Something in her eyes told them this wasn't just a fight, this was a duel for respect. A battle unseen in ages. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then suddenly something clicked. She moved with a ferocity that shocked everyone. The instructor swung and like lightning she was there. She disarmed him just like that. Gasps erupted as he stumbled backward, disbelief painted on his face. In that moment time froze. Could it really be happening? The SEALs all exchanged bewildered looks, breaths held tight. No one expected this. And yet, in the back of her mind, a quiet voice whispered, what's next? Would this be her moment of triumph, or the beginning of an even greater challenge? The compound erupted in chaos. Whispers turned to shouts as the realization sank in. She wasn't just a girl trapped in a man's world. She was a force capable of taking on one of their own. A murmur rumbled through the crowd, rising like storm clouds, pure disbelief painting their faces. "You gotta be kidding me," one SEAL bellowed, slapping his friend's arm. "Did you see that?" The instructor, still regaining his balance, shot her a stunned look, anger simmering beneath his shock. This wasn't just a simple training session anymore. This was about pride, hierarchy, and a reputation carved through years of sacrifice. With every eye glued to her, she felt a strange mix of adrenaline and fear course through her veins. That quiet voice whispering in her head grew louder. She had faced demons of her past, but this was something entirely different. What now? Would she stand her ground and continue, or back down? There was no going back. The stakes had just raised several levels before she could fully process her next move. The instructor charged again, fists swinging with deadly purpose. But her reflexes were sharper this time, sharpened by the thrill of the unexpected defeat she had just dealt. Ducking low, she spun out of harm's way, feeling the breeze from his fist sweep past her. The SEALs were entranced, everyone holding their breath, teetering on the edge of the unknown. And with a heartbeat of confidence, she countered. Her body flowed into a sequence of movements that articulated the training she had undergone in secret. The crowd gasped as she struck, drawing on everything she had learned from the shadows of night, far from the watchful eyes that had claimed to hold authority. A swift jab to the instructor's side, then a hook to the jaw that sent him staggering. The instructor's expression shifted from disbelief to disbelief laced with fury. His eyes narrowed, and she could sense his determination radiating like a furnace. He wasn't just fighting her. He was fighting the very notion that he could lose. "Get up!" a voice shouted from the back, sparking a cycle of encouragement and disbelief amongst the onlookers. Realizing that she commanded their attention, she drew inspiration from the crowd's buzzing excitement. "Never back down," she murmured to herself. echoing the mantra that had driven her through so many struggles. But was this really the heart of the battle? As the instructor gathered his focus, squared off in a low stance, something in the air shifted. She could feel it, an undercurrent of anticipation, hidden threats lurking beneath the surface. This wasn't just a test of skill. There was something waiting in the shadows to be revealed. With a fierce determination, she pressed forward, her next move filled with all her pent-up ambitions and unshed fears. The odds felt insurmountable, yet adrenaline coursed through her veins like wildfire. Then, just as her mentor had taught her in the secrecy of the night, she went deeper, daring to put everything on the line. The next blow could change everything or shatter her illusions forever. But would it be enough to overcome not only the instructor but the hidden secrets that threatened to rise up and consume her as well? In the midst of the fray, the shadows in the audience loomed large, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched for more than just a fight. Someone wanted to see her fail, she could sense it. And suddenly, in that charged moment, she had to ask herself again. What was lurking behind the facade of this fight? Something deep within was about to be unleashed. The instructor was a whirlwind of motions, his previous anger escalating into a fierce, calculated drive. He lunged, muscles coiled, eyes burning with rage as he charged her once more. With a surge of adrenaline, she prepared herself, instincts flaring. This was not just a spar anymore. This was a battle for recognition, a test of everything she had ever fought for. She danced backward, eyes fixed on his every move. The crowd buzzed louder, a cacophony of disbelief and thrill. "What is she doing?" someone exclaimed. The psychology of the moment was thick with tension, the stakes layered like an intricate puzzle. Her place, her identity, everything hinged on the outcome of this struggle. As he swung again, she ducked low but didn't spin away. Instead, she sidestepped him, a flash of decision lighting her path. With swift precision, she delivered a strike to the back of his knee. The instructor's response was immediate. He stumbled but regained balance, quickly adjusting to counter her unexpected move. She felt a rush of triumph, but that was quickly enveloped by the realization she hadn't just landed a blow. She had enraged a man who didn't just fight for victory. He fought for survival in this world. "Come on, get up," another voice called, the crowd urging him on, the atmosphere electric with their hopes and doubts intertwined. Their tension clung to her, heavy as armor but also burdening her spirit. Did they really believe she could win? Each cheer echoed in her heart like a metronome, counting down the seconds until the next moment of reckoning. He thrust forward again, an uppercut aimed with ferocity. This time she anticipated the attack, moving with what felt like a fluidity beyond her own. She ducked and rolled, her mind racing. Every move had to be flawless, and if she faltered, it would unravel all she had built. Sweat beaded on her brow as she sprang back up, executing a spinning hook kick, sending shockwaves through the crowd. His face was a mask of shock and fury. The disbelief no longer shrouded. Instead, it gave way to desperation. This was more than a physical clash. It was a battle for respect, dignity, the loss of which would haunt him forever. Then she saw it, the flicker in his eyes. He was fighting not just for victory but for revenge, a need to reclaim his authority. That flicker was matched by another, hers. The realization that rooted in her heart stubbornly bloomed. She could take him on, not merely fight him. She could expose the cracks in their world. This facade of dominance that men like him wore as an armor against women like her. "Keep it up," someone shouted, a renewed charge lifting the crowd's spirits. As they rallied behind her, she felt that all-familiar pulse of hope coating her veins, energizing her every nerve. The teacher and student dynamic blurred. She was no longer beneath his shadow but a contender in her own right. But just as excitement reached a fever pitch, she felt it again, the prickle of unseen eyes. Instinct screamed at her that this was more than just a test of fighting skills. Shadows began to shift, and every instinct in her body warned that the stakes were even higher than she had imagined. Someone was watching, waiting for their moment to pounce. The tension was electric, anxiety coiling tight within her chest. Did they want her to win, or was there a more sinister reason for this peculiar match? With a final rallying cry from the crowd, she launched herself at the instructor again, every ounce of her pent-up ambition fueling her movements. This was not just about the outcome of a fight, but a revelation of what lay beneath their harsh, trained exteriors. But in the turmoil of fists and fury, Would her awakening be enough to unearth the hidden dangers lurking beyond the surface? Because somewhere, hidden in the shadows, the true test awaited. She sprang forward, every muscle tensed and every nerve alive. Her fist shot out, connecting solidly with the instructor's jaw. The force sent him reeling, but he wasn't done yet. Raging, he spun around, unleashing a vicious kick aimed straight at her midsection. She barely managed to duck and roll, the foot grazing her side, enough to sting but not to break her momentum. The crowd erupted, a wave of noise washing over the gym, their roar fueling her resolve. She could feel their eyes' anticipation blended with hope and disbelief. But lurking beneath that excitement was tension, almost too thick to breathe. Someone else was here. Someone unseen and unknown. The feeling tightened her chest, a coil of fear intertwined with determination. Just then, she caught a glimpse of a shadow moving at the edge of the room. It was subtle, almost imperceptible against the backdrop of chaos, but it made her heart race. Who were they? And why were they watching? The instructor seemed to sense something was off too. He staggered back, scanning the crowd, his fury morphing into uncertainty. Taking advantage of his distraction, she lunged again, landing a powerful kick to his torso. He stumbled backward, eyes wide as the crowd erupted into chants. Suddenly he regained composure, a sinister smile creeping across his face. "Is this your best shot?" he taunted, wiping blood from the corner of his mouth. Rage and humiliation twisted his features. He just fighting her. He was fighting his own fear, and that made him dangerous. Out of nowhere he lunged, grabbing her wrist and twisting it sharply. Pain ignited, shooting up her arm. "You think you can take me down? You're in over your head, girl." His voice was dark, low, threatening. But the pain snapped her focus into clarity. She kicked out, catching him behind the knee. As he buckled, she twisted her wrist free, using his moment of weakness to spin behind him. She threw her arm around his neck and pulled, dragging him backward with all her might. The crowd gasped, a wave of anticipation washing over the space. It was a matter of seconds where she could break through the layers of dominance he had wrapped around her and everyone else in this room. But then, a commotion sounded from the shadows. "Stop!" A commanding voice erupted, slicing through the adrenaline high. The movement in the dark became frantic, and her resolve began to shatter. She glanced back, eyes wide, searching for the source. There, emerging from behind the bleachers, was a figure cloaked in darkness. A grim sense of authority accompanied their presence, and her heart sank. This wasn't just a fight anymore. She was now caught in something much larger. "Get away from him!" The voice echoed again, sharp and furious. A spotlight flared on, illuminating the figure. It was an unfamiliar face, but one that radiated power. It struck a collective chord in the crowd, drawing back a collective breath. Her world wavered as she fought for clarity. Who were they? Another player in the brutal game that had morphed from a wrestling match into a chokehold of control over the narrative. Did the instructor have ties? Was this all set up? Her focus snapped back to the fight, adrenaline screaming through her veins. She had to make a choice: continue to fight and risk everything, or retreat and risk losing everything she had gained. The tension in the air was thick, charged with unanswered questions and the weight of uncertainty. And then it hit her. In this moment she wasn't just fighting him or them. She was fighting for everyone watching, everyone who had been silenced, and that realization ignited something fierce inside her. Her future lay on the cusp of explosion as she readied herself to dive back into the fray. She couldn't shake the feeling that this fleeting moment was just the beginning of a twisted game of power and deception. What would happen next? Would she summon the strength to take down both her opponent and the lurking threat? Or would the shadows claim another soul lost to their secrets? Time was running out, and the real fight was just about to begin. She gritted her teeth and blinked against the harsh glare of the spotlight, locking eyes with the authoritative figure emerging from the shadows. The crowd buzzed, their collective breath held, every inch of tension boiling over. She could feel their energy: concern, fear, raw adrenaline. Every pair of eyes locked onto the fray. The instructor chuckled darkly, adjusting himself, patting his injured jaw. "You think you can intimidate me with theatrics? Pathetic." He spat, his voice dripping with contempt. She could see he was still reeling from her earlier blows, but it was clear he was far from done. The sense of control he had wielded with such confidence was crumbling. Just like the ego she was pummeling down with every strike. Enough! The cloaked figure shouted again, stepping forward. A long trench coat swirled around their legs, and in that moment, they felt almost otherworldly. Who were they? The mere presence of this newcomer sent chills racing down her spine. Ignoring the distraction, the instructor charged, fists raised, sweat gleaming on his brow. She anticipated his moves, driving her entire focus into the present moment. With a swift sidestep she dodged him, the rush of his body barely missing her. The collective murmur of the crowd rose, a surge of disbelief that she was still standing strong. The figure moved again, stepping between her and the instructor, a barrier of authority. This isn't how it's supposed to go down. They barked, eyes aflame with intensity. Every nerve in her body screamed for clarity, but the spotlight swirled between the three of them, a cyclone of chaos. Who were they to interfere? Her mind raced. The instructor's fury erupted, and he lunged past the figure, enraged and desperate. She seized the moment, her instincts screaming to act. With a low sweep of her leg, she took him down. He crashed to the mat, surprised. The floor shook with his fall, but he rolled over quickly, returning to his feet and into a defensive stance. You might have some tricks, girl, but I'm trained to deal with your kind. He hissed, rage twisting his features. Isn't that what they all say? She shot back, adrenaline surging through her veins. Let us find out who the real fighter is. The figure began to circle the edge of the ring, eyes darting back and forth, as if observing every detail. They knew something was about to explode. Were they friend or foe? She felt the weight of their scrutiny sharpen her resolve. It was almost a challenge. Then, without warning, the figure flicked their wrist, and a thin metallic object flew through the air. It landed at her feet, an intricate charm glinting ominously. For a split second, confusion clouded her mind. What was that supposed to be? Pick it up, the figure commanded. It's your way out. The instructor snarled, understanding this moment was significant. I won't let you escape, he roared and barreled towards her. She could either grab the charm and trust what this stranger was trying to convey, or continue wrestling against her opponent. Her heart raced, an impossible decision yet pulsating with urgency. In a heartbeat, her fingers clenched around the charm. As it warmed in her palm, she felt a surge of energy coursing through her. Suddenly, the fight became a blur. Was this the key she needed? Was she truly about to turn the tide in this chaotic battle? With a newfound sense of purpose, she stepped forward, eyes on the instructor. The crowd, increasingly restless, leaned in, sensing something monumental was about to happen. But just as she moved, a sharp scream cut through the air, someone in the crowd tearing through their silence. Look out! The warning ignited a spark of fear deep within her, a chilling realization that danger lurked beyond what her eyes could see. What was coming next, and who could she really trust? The answer was just beneath the surface, nearing revelation, yet shrouded in a tempest of uncertainty. Buckle up, because the fight was only just beginning. Her instincts kicked in hard and fast. She could feel the crowd shift, that collective gasp melting into a tense silence, as if the entire atmosphere drew in a breath. In seconds she became acutely aware of everything: the smell of sweat and fear, the whisper of fabric brushing against skin, and a tingling awareness of something just beyond her line of sight. Without thinking, she turned, fully grasping the charm. Power flickered along her fingers, urging her forward. As the instructor lunged again, she tapped into that electric energy. Time slowed. The world around her folded, and she became a blur of motion. With a surge of adrenaline, she ducked under his outstretched arm. The charm pulsed, an undeniable force guiding her. She pivoted, redirecting a blow aimed at her face, and transformed it into a counterattack. A swift kick to his knee sent him stumbling, a pained grunt escaping his lips. The crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and gasps, disbelief reflected in their eyes. She was no longer just fighting for herself. She was igniting something deeper within them, a collective hope perhaps. But the figure in the trench coat remained watchful, shifting closer, murmuring things she couldn't quite catch, encouragement or caution. It was hard to say. Were they on her side, or did they have their own agenda? As she regained her footing, she risked a glance. The cloaked figure nodded slightly, as if acknowledging her strength but reminding her of the stakes. The instructor, now unsteady, shot daggers at her with a glare that made her insides twist. Fear threatened to creep back in, but she held tight to the charm, its warmth pushing away the chill. "You're overconfident, girl," he sneered, wiping sweat and blood from his face, his eyes now darting around as if seeking an escape. "You really don't know what you're dealing with." Without warning, the lights flickered. Shadows deepened, enveloping the corners of the ring in a cloak of uncertainty. The temperature dropped, and a low rumble echoed through the building like thunder overhead. Unease rippled through the crowd, and she could feel the tension snapping into something tangible. What now? She thought. Was this part of the game? The instructor's deep trench coat flared out as he moved again, but her attention flickered back to the figure. Were they summoning something? Suddenly, piercing screams erupted from somewhere deep in the crowd. The chaos shattered the atmosphere like glass. She turned, heart racing. A wall of panic pulsated around her. People were scrambling, and there was a surge in movement, bodies colliding, desperate to escape. "Stay focused," the figure yelled, their voice slicing through the panic. "You need to harness it." But what was it? The charm? The energy? The fight? Her whole being screamed for her to react, and instinctively she raised the charm, channeling every shred of energy coursing through her. The ring felt electric, alive in a way that sparked something bubbling beneath the surface. She could sense it. Whatever was brewing would be explosive. Then, without warning, the instructor lunged again, desperation etched in his expression, but this time she was ready. She could feel a surge of something more than just her own will, a force igniting the very air around her. As she prepared to strike, the room grew deathly quiet for just a moment. Everyone was watching, and then she stepped back. What was she holding back? What truth lay ahead, waiting to be unveiled? The energy of the charm flickered, and in that thrilling instant, the next move would change everything. Would she find the strength to unleash it? Would it save her or trap her deeper into a web of chaos? The moment loomed. Every heartbeat echoed in her chest as the next chapter beckoned with an unfathomable promise. A revelation hung in the balance, waiting to grip her tightly and propel her into the unknown. The stillness wrapped around her like a shroud, the tension palpable, and she felt every eye in the room glued to her. The instructor's gaze was dark, a storm brewing, and she sensed desperation and rage twisting into something sinister. In one fluid motion, she tightened her grip on the charm, feeling its heat thrum beneath her fingers, furious and alive. She couldn't hold back anymore. The instructor's provocations echoing in her mind were eaten alive by a fire building inside her. But was she prepared to unleash it? The instructor lunged once more, a furious predator. Her instincts kicked in, instinct colliding with conscious thought. She stepped sideways, barely avoiding his outstretched fingers. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a dance between danger and determination. Everyone watched in breathless anticipation. "Come on, girl," someone yelled, the voice barely breaking through the chaos. "You got this." The crowd erupted with energy, igniting a flicker of courage within her. She couldn't disappoint them. They believed in her, and that belief flooded through her veins. She could almost feel their every heartbeat, pulsing with the raw need for victory. That a wild laugh came from the instructor, echoing through the dim arena, a sound that mocked her hesitance. "This isn't a game. You think you're special? You don't know what's lurking beneath." His voice hissed each word, designed to shred her resolve. She felt that flicker of fear begin to creep back, her mind racing with unwanted memories. But then she thought of the figure in the trench coat. That nod. That gaze that promised there was power in her hands. "No," she shouted, finding her voice, raw and powerful. If she had any chance to fight back against the dark that threatened to consume her, she needed to face it head-on. The charm flared in her grip, pulsing with energy as though urging her on. With one deep inhale, she gathered the weight of the world within her, like a ball of fire coiling in her gut. She launched herself forward, a blur of motion igniting the ring. The crowd gasped, their collective breath held tight in their throats. She flowed into her strike, a mix of calculated fury and instinct that felt like second nature. Her foot connected with the instructor's midsection, a brutal crunch amplifying in the chaos. He stumbled back, shock etched across his features. A wave of exhilaration washed over her, and she could feel the crowd erupting into a frenzy. It was a symphony of disbelief, hope, and raw power that coursed through her. But then the temperature dropped sharply. She glanced around, the shadows coalescing deeper into monstrous shapes. A figure emerged from the darkness, more cloaked figures, closing in. Panic surged again, her heart plummeting. Back! Stay back! Someone shouted from the edge of the crowd as more people squeezed against each other to escape. Use it, girl! The trench-coated figure cried again. You have to control it or lose everything. The crowd parted, and she saw something rise behind the instructor, a manifestation of darkness swirling. Its form twisting and writhing, ominous. It was like a breathing entity, alive with malevolence, ready to consume them all. What was this? The energy of her charm flickered like an unstable flame. Could she confront this shadow? As the instructor regained his composure, a wicked grin spread across his face. Both of them, the tangible and the intangible, were now circling her. The weight of the charm felt heavier, almost alive, a whisper of dread cutting through the hope she had just mustered. Do you really believe you can win? He taunted as the darkness loomed closer, a palpable hunger radiating in waves. The moment had come. Was she strong enough? With the sensation of something monumental about to occur, she sensed the truth held tightly within her grip. Inhaling deeply, she clutched the charm to her heart. She was ready to unveil her power or be consumed by it. But that knowledge stirred deep within her, a thought breathing life into the horror that awaited. Could she truly master the echoes of that darkness, or would it rip away everything she had come to fight for? The crowd's energy crackled around her as the shadows danced, waiting for her next move. What lay in store for her now, she had to face, and the answer could change everything. The darkness twisted, a living thing that coiled closer, each shadow clawing at her with chilling intent. She could almost taste the fear in the air, bitter and acrid, a desperate plea for escape. Behind the instructor, the shadow expanded, filling the space between them, crawling toward her like an ominous tide. Fight it! You have to unleash it! The trench-coated figure called out, urgency etching his voice. She could barely focus on his words, their meaning slipping through her mind like grains of sand. She was teetering between her flickering bravado and the bone-deep terror that threatened to paralyze her. With the crowd's ragged breaths hanging in the air, she hardened her resolve. This wasn't just about her anymore. They were watching. They believed in her. She took a step forward, breath hitching as an essence of power surged within her, merging with the fire in her gut. Get back! She shouted, directing her voice to the dark encroaching upon them. It poured around her like fog, its presence suffocating. Her charm burned hot against her palm, whispering promises that sparked adrenaline in her veins. She lifted it, feeling the raw surge of its energy, a beacon amidst the shadow. As she focused, a familiar flicker ignited in her chest. The tricky thing was harnessing it. Heart racing, she pulled on that flicker, channeling the energy through her fingers and into the charm. A blinding light burst forth, illuminating the arena with a fierce glow as she directed it at the shadow. The darkness recoiled, hissing softly as if it were being scalded. With a fierce determination she pressed on, her voice ringing defiantly, "You won, take me." The crowd erupted, not in shock, but in a wave of unrestrained support. Yes, fight! Their chants morphed into a thunderstorm of encouragement. The instructor staggered back, a stark contrast to her fierce advance. The shadows around him trembled, rippling under the intensity of her challenge. You think shining light will save you? He sneered, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Though fear edged his bravado, she could see cracks forming in the pulse of the shadow, its hold wavering. But just as her heart soared, the instructor sprang forward, propelling himself into the light. He seemed desperate, fully aware that her power was real, that her light was a threat. Grinning, he lunged, fists raised to snuff out her spark. Time slowed. Months of training raced through her mind, each moment, each lesson carving deep into her spirit. She widened her stance and raised the charm closer to her chest, making it her anchor. With swift precision she twisted away, avoiding his blow and redirecting the energy from the light into a forceful blast aimed right at him. He lifted his arm to shield himself, but it was too late. The blast connected, exploding like thunder under a stormy sky. The impact sent him tumbling backward, slamming into the ground with an ungracious thud. But the darkness, it was still there, writhing, watching. She turned her focus back, feeling the sensation of its chilling caress against her skin. The shadows had not diminished. They were converging, pulling together in a malevolent mass, angrier now, as if they had felt the sting of defeat. The panic surged again. Her momentary victory felt shallow against the looming horror. "Siphon it," came the trench-coated figure's voice, urgent and commanding. Use the darkness against itself. Could she? Could she truly wrestle power from that which seemed so consuming? The shadows lunged as if sensing her hesitation. A scream shattered the residual cheers from the crowd, but she couldn't turn back. Closing her eyes, she summoned everything she had. Fear, hope, anger, and the flickering light from the charm. The moment felt electric. She had to ask herself, was she ready to dive deeper into the darkness, willing to confront the very thing that threatened to obliterate her? Could she transform the shadows into strength, or would they swallow her whole? Her heart pounded as she braced herself, the impending fight signaling the beginning of a war not just with the darkness but with herself. The crowd became a distant hum. It was just her and the shadows, and in that moment she had to decide. Would she fold or would she rise? Before she could answer herself, the darkness lunged again, and everything swirled into chaos. The shadows lunged like a tidal wave, consuming the light that flickered around her in a frenzy. She could feel the cold rush of darkness wrapping around her limbs, pulling her down. Panic gripped her heart, a twist of primal fear, but deep within her, a spark ignited anew. It was a choice. Either fight or be devoured. Focus, focus. The trench-coated figure's voice echoed, sharper this time, breaking through the fog of her fear. She couldn't afford to doubt. She couldn't let the darkness dictate her fate. With a deep breath, she recalled the lessons of her training. Fear was a tool, and anger was forged in the fires of survival. She clenched her fingers around the charm, feeling its warm pulse, hers to control, hers to wield. With each breath, she inhaled strength and exhaled weakness. Just then, tendrils of darkness wrapped tighter around her, and she felt the cold press against her throat, trying to steal her voice. "I'll take you," she screamed, suddenly bold. "You want me? Then come on." In that instant, she let go of every fear. Every doubt. That flicker of light transformed into a raging fire within her. She called upon the shadows, feeling their twisted intentions, and beckoned them closer with a power that reverberated through her. The crowd fell silent, their breath caught in unison as they witnessed the shift. Instead of cowering, she stood her ground, defiance gleaming in her eyes. She focused, drawing in the thickness of the darkness, siphoning its energy like a predator stalking its prey. As the shadows crashed towards her, she thrust her charm forward. "You will not control me." Each word was punctuated by bursts of light that erupted from her charm, shooting like sunbeams through the dense fog. The darkness recoiled, hissing in frustration, the sound rippling through the gathering like icy fingers along a spine. She poured all of herself into that light, channeling it into a beam so vibrant that it sliced through the blackness. Then with one swift motion she twisted her wrist, redirecting the beam. It arced through the air, splitting the shadows that clawed at her from every angle. They shrieked, a cacophony of whispers among the thrumming energy. And just like that, with every pulse of light, she felt her strength swell. The instructor staggered back, eyes wide. "No, this isn't how it's supposed to go." The ink of his shadow twisted at his feet, eyeing her with malice, uncertain under the radiant onslaught. But she felt a cold sweep of relief. Was she winning? The darkness wailed as it stretched against the light, flinging fragments of itself away like ash caught in the wind. She was no longer an ember. She was the blaze. Just as she allowed herself a flicker of hope, bloody shadows raged, angry and desperate. They swirled together, slamming toward her, crashing against the light she had wielded with newfound confidence. "Push. You have to push harder." The trench-coated man's voice sliced through the air again, fueling her courage. With the crowd back in the moment, fists clenched, eyes wide, she found the strength to summon more. The darkness circled her, thrumming like a heartbeat, and with gritted teeth, she threw open the floodgates. The shadows cried out sharply as if in torment. She conjured a swirling vortex of light, an ethereal cyclone that pulled at the darkness like a dark star collapsing in on itself. It was exhilarating, terrifying. She was the storm and the stillness. But just as victory felt near, she saw him. The instructor had risen once again, eyes blazing like coals. Dazed but stumbling closer, he stretched out a hand, and with it, sent the remnants of darkness roaring back toward her in a furious wave. Now you will learn your real lesson. He growled, rage mingling with something darker behind his eyes. Her heart dropped. Instinct screamed for her to retreat, but she had come too far. Summoning every ounce of light within her, she dug in her heels. The weight of the crowd's anticipation bore down on her shoulders, and she closed her eyes, steadying her breath. Could she really turn the tide once more, or had she just awakened something that would crush her spirit? The clash was imminent, and only time would tell if the shadows would swallow her whole, or if she could reshape the darkness into her ally. Would she fall, or would she finally rise? Everything had led to this moment. The shadows swirled ominously beyond the light she commanded, the instructor's anger bubbling beneath the surface like a boiling pot. She wasn't just fighting him. She was grappling with decades of prejudice, fear, and oppression. They wanted her to fold, to fail, but the energy coursing through her was fierce, ignited by conviction and fueled by the audacity of hope that bloomed in the depths of her heart. She opened her eyes, finding strength in the faces around her, eyes wide, mouths moving in silent encouragement. The crowd believed in her, and it felt like layers of armor wrapping around her, shielding her from despair. Keep going, someone shouted, the words cutting through the tension like a knife. The trench-coated figure was shadowing her every move, intent in their watch, urging her to harness the very essence of the fight swirling around them. No, you will not take my light, she roared, her voice rising above the chaos, reverberating in the walls of the compound. She pressed her charm against her chest, feeling the heat intensifying, a blazing sun within, illuminating the darkness all around her. With an energized leap, she surged forward, fingers outstretched like vines reaching for the sun. The darkness flickered, uncertainty creeping in as her resolve deepened. You're weak, she shouted, each word ringing with conviction, with passion. You're nothing but fear masquerading as strength. As if in response, the instructor lunged again, his face twisted, a man on the brink of desperation. He charged like a bull, throwing everything he had left into a single terrifying strike. Time felt like it slowed, the world narrowing down to a blink. She stepped aside, allowing his momentum to carry him past her, feeling the wind of his fist slice through the air. In that split second, she tripped him with a swift kick, watching as he stumbled, the weight of his own fury sending him crashing to the ground. Cheers erupted from the crowd, a thunderous wave of support. You got this, their voices called, hot adrenaline coursing through her. It fired her resolve, sharpened her focus. She could feel the shadows shifting behind her, restless and angry, as if they sensed the tide was about to change. She turned back towards the instructor, finding him scrambling to regain his footing. Shadows linked to him, curling around his limbs, a refusal to accept defeat, but she saw the cracks in his facade now. She lifted the charm, its brilliance illuminating the room like fireworks, a brilliant burst of potential and power. I faced my shadows for too long. They do not own me, she declared, unleashing a beam of blinding light, cutting through the dark tendrils spilling from the instructor. You may wield the shadows, but they will not control me. The light clashed with the darkness, a collision of power that sent shivers racing through the air, echoing against walls that held stories of countless struggles and victories. The aura pulsed around her, coursing through the air like electricity, inflaming her spirit. Embrace it. Embrace yourself, the figure in the trench coat shouted. Then she did. With every ounce of strength, she poured herself into the light, channeling the confidence that had lived quietly within her for far too long. The shadows shrieked, twisting and darting away, terrifying yet submissive. In that moment, she felt the tides turning, not just against the instructor, but against every voice that had ever silenced her. Time slowed once more, and clarity struck. She had the power to break their hold. The light exploded from her like a furnace igniting the air, a torrent of brilliance that enveloped the instructor. He staggered back, eyes wide, witnessing the overwhelming force of someone unafraid to embrace their destiny. The darkness detached from him, swirling like smoke, dissipating into nothingness. No, he screamed, pulling against the unseen force that bound him, but the grip loosened. The shadows vanished, leaving him bare, exposed in the overwhelming glow that consumed him. The crowd erupted into a standing ovation, voices blending into a joyful choir, invigorating her with every note. For once she felt free, unbound by expectations, unchained by fears. As the dust settled, she turned toward the figure, heart racing, eyes sparkling with gratitude. They stepped forward, nodding approval etched in their features as they tossed her a deep, unwavering gaze. She had done it. They had done it. You showed them all, the figure said softly, stepping closer, the shadows retreating into their coat like a cloak of wisdom. This is just the beginning. Her heart swelled with newfound purpose. Right, she replied, voice steady and fierce. This fight isn't just for me. It's for everyone who has ever been told they couldn't. The applause roared like thunder, echoing in her chest, a resounding affirmation of her journey. There were countless fights ahead, but she would face them head held high. With the shadows behind her and her light blazing bright, she was ready. And as she stepped into her new dawn, she knew there was no turning back. If you felt inspired by her journey, it's time to take action. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on the next incredible story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help spread the word. You can't let your friends miss this revelation. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories, and instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this powerful conclusion. This is the moment to show your support and be part of this amazing community. Don't wait even one more second.